Hello, Pastor Deborah here again, and we are beginning another wonderful part of our King and Kingdom series, our leadership development, here on Pastor Deborah's YouTube channel, The Hidden Kingdoms. And also, this will be podcasted out to many free podcast shows for you to listen to. Maybe while you're driving the car or doing something else and you can't watch. So welcome. We're going to pick up in part number 12 of the Return of the King. That's you. And all of humanity, if we can get us all there. And now comes the days of the kingdom of heaven. Our days up until today have mostly been under the kingdom of darkness, under Satan, and his rule and his kingships and his lords, owners. Even nature is under its subjugation, until you rise up as a king and free it. All the creatures, even the water, the land, the minerals, are all under the kingdom of darkness, until you can grow up and are no longer an ignorant king, and can speak and send out the host of heaven and get the earth and nature back into the kingdom of heaven. I do that all the time, and I'm slowly working through the nations, through the minerals, through the earth, through nature, little bit by little bit. The kingdom of heaven is returning in the second heaven. So let's continue with our part. We've been talking about some words and concepts that I, Pastor Deborah, had to learn from myself when I was changing from being a religious church member and having an understanding that was so deep. I was an ignorant spiritual king, and with the help of Dr. Myles Munroe of the Bahamas Faith Ministries years ago, who is now in heaven with his wife after a plane accident. I sat under Dr. Myles Munroe as a member of his church on my laptop for years. Every Sunday night, I read every one of his books. I watched every one of his videos on YouTube. I took notes. I reread the books. I studied. And I learned I was a king spiritually. And that came from a very ancient, everlasting covenant of Genesis 1:26 through 28. But I didn't know that. For when my ancestor, my grandfather, the great Adam, when he disobeyed in the Garden of Eden and ate of a fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, when he was not supposed to, he and all of his sperm, every human from now on, and even the earth itself, we all fell into the hands and into the servitude, slavery of Satan, the great deceiver, who was inside of a serpent, not a snake at the time. This serpent gave Satan permission to come inside of him in the garden. And Satan spoke to the woman about how pretty the fruit was on this forbidden tree, and how it shined, how it would taste good, and how it would be healthy, and how it would help her become all that she was supposed to be, that God was trying to keep something from her, like being a king or a god herself, even though she did not know she was one already, as an offspring of God. But that's another story. So here, in these written down concepts that I wrote down years ago to help me talk to people, Because I would get asked so many questions like, what church do you go to? Where's your membership? And I had to explain to them that I was a citizen, that's from Dr. Myles Munroe, of the kingdom, the land, the territory, the country called heaven. I was not a church person. I was not an earth being. I had dirt from the earth, but the real me was a spiritual, eternal being from another country. And I was speaking out to them, but they didn't understand it. So here, I want to go through another part of the words and the concepts I had to study. So this is going to be part number 12 of what we've been working through, and how you have to change your concepts, your understanding, your words you say to yourself, to others, your thoughts. You've got to study and learn. I learned here in part number 12 many things, but first let's open up with prayer. Dear God of creation and God of the kingdom of heaven, thank you for helping me and all these that are listening to grow and learn and mature and put us through school. Educate us in the kingdom of heaven ways. Help us through your powerful Holy Spirit, that Spirit which you have given us to train us and teach us, convert us from the ways of the world, the earthly ways of thinking, the ways of the kingdom of darkness, and to understand ourselves as kings from the kingdom of heaven. Thank you for never leaving nor forsaking your everlasting covenant, out of Genesis 1:26 through 28. Thank you for always being there to help us, even when we didn't know it, using experiences, circumstances, nature, animals, books, fairy tales, songs, art, poetry, animals. Thank you. We can't thank you enough. In the name of you, the God of creation. So here is something I had to learn, that the kingdom of heaven was a territory. It was a country, a nation. It had dominion, authority, rules, justice. It had a constitution. It had a flag. It had soldiers. It was a business. It had trade. It was just like any other government and country that you may understand from the earth. It had a constitution. It had laws. It had commandments, decrees, and edicts from the king. The king had judgment, and he had courtrooms. He had mercy and compassion. He had libraries. He had schools. He had ministers. He was everywhere, and it was his land, because he created it by his own thoughts, his own words. I had to study the king, the great I am. I had to study his constitution. I had to study edicts, how he speaks, what it means when he speaks. I had to understand kingdoms. So he's helped me through Chinese historical dramas, ancient British Empire movies. Study, I did. Then I learned that this kingdom and this king would give us spiritual gifts to help us. I just did that with a young man as he was getting anointed to be a spiritual king. First you have to take a bath. Light came down and cleansed him. Then you put on a white robe of righteousness. That's your priestly part. Then you put on the whole armor of God. That was a sight to behold. Then you got the sword of the Spirit, a sword of light. So you would learn that your words were as a sword, could bring death or life, blessings or curses, just by your words. Then you could be given your creatures, your living creatures that would be with you. In this young man's case, he got lions with wings, wolves with wings, golden falcons, and a white horse. You might get something else, depending on your nature and what you're going to be doing and where you're going. He was given 12 angels to guard him, and one big one, so he's got 13. And he could name the big one. Now, they don't talk to him. They're there as silent guards, bodyguards. Then he was given a host of heaven, angels, to go with him when he went on missions. Where did all this authority come from? Genesis 1:26 through 28. Yeah, you've got to read. And then he was given a crown of light, of glory, that I placed on his head. And he was given a scepter to point and to use. He had to learn about edicts. And these things I learned from Dr. Myles Munroe, because he taught me about queens of England, Europe, because he lived under a queen, Queen Elizabeth II. And I watched early British queens. And I watched Spanish movies with kings, queens. And France, who had kings and queens. Now I'm studying ancient Chinese historical dramas who had a lot of kings. They just called them emperors. Oh, they're excellent. And once you understand the system of a kingdom, you can begin to understand the Bible and how it works. Even Muhammad understood kings, rules, edicts, laws, government, priests, prophets. He understood. Did you know Muhammad had a spiritual journey one night, went up to the seventh heaven, met Adam and Abraham, Isaac, and Jesus? Muhammad believed. He got a lot of spiritual information from an angel. He believed in Satan and evil spirits, the dark world, even jinns. Oh yes, jinns are human spirits who are evil. They live in a separate, unseen world. You've got to study other religions. The ancient Egyptians knew about demons, and devils, the underworld, and the afterlife. The ancient Greeks, they knew about gods. You study, and don't you discount anything. A lot of it is blurry to us, but God was trying to help us understand about Him, the kingdom of heaven, who we were, and who we had forgotten that we were. Yeah. So you be encouraged. There's lots to learn. And you'll no longer be just a regular church member, a religious person. You'll be a citizen from a kingdom. And then when you learn about the kingdom and the king, and that you too are an ignorant king like I was, and you desire to learn how to rule and reign spiritually from your spirit, in the second heavens, that you can help people and humanity and free them from captivity to Satan, to darkness, to ignorance, to slavery and torture that they were never to be under. Then you're on your way. And we'll pick up again next time in part number 13. And we'll get into some things that you have to have in order to be a king from the kingdom of heaven. I'll talk with you later. Bye-bye.